As you close your eyes tonight and let the darkness embrace you, imagine that all around you, invisible to your closed lids, streams an extraordinary symphony of light. Not the simple white light you think you see from lamps and stars, but a complex orchestra of countless colors, each one a different note in the cosmic song of electromagnetic radiation that fills every space in the universe. The gentle light that illuminated your day, whether from the sun streaming through your window or the warm glow of indoor lighting, contains within it every color imaginable, and many your eyes cannot even perceive. What you experience as simple white light is actually a magnificent blend of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, plus infrared heat you can feel but not see, plus ultraviolet radiation that affects your skin but remains invisible to your eyes. Color is not something that exists independently in the world around you. It is a beautiful collaboration between the physics of light and the biology of your visual system. A conversation between electromagnetic waves traveling at 186,000 miles per second and the intricate neural networks in your brain that transform wavelength into the rich palette of human experience. Every color you have ever seen, from the deep blue of twilight skies to the brilliant red of autumn leaves, represents light waves of specific frequencies, vibrating through space and time. Red light oscillates roughly 400 trillion times per second, while violet light vibrates nearly twice as fast, at about 750 trillion oscillations per second. Your eyes and brain somehow translate these incomprehensibly rapid vibrations into the warm and cool hues that paint your visual world. When you see a red rose in sunlight, you are not seeing redness as a property of the flower itself, but witnessing a complex interaction between white light from the sun, the molecular structure of rose petals, and the sophisticated color processing systems in your visual cortex. The rose appears red because its petals absorb most colors of light, but reflect red wavelengths back to your eyes, where specialized cells convert those specific light frequencies into the neural signals your brain interprets as the experience of redness. This means that color exists primarily in your mind, created by your brain's interpretation of different wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. The wavelength itself is not red or blue or green. It is simply energy, oscillating at a particular frequency as it travels through space. The vivid colors of your visual experience are your nervous system's way of organizing and categorizing different types of light, creating a rich perceptual world from the invisible mathematics of electromagnetic waves. Tonight, as you rest in darkness, electromagnetic radiation continues to flow all around you, carrying colors you cannot see. Infrared radiation from your warm body paints you in heat signatures visible to special cameras. Radio waves of many frequencies pass through your room, carrying information and energy in wavelengths far longer than visible light. Ultraviolet light from distant stars and cosmic sources bathes you in colors beyond the violet edge of human vision. The visible spectrum, the narrow band of electromagnetic radiation your eyes can detect, represents only a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic symphony that surrounds you. If the entire electromagnetic spectrum were stretched across a piano keyboard, visible light would occupy less than a single key. Yet, within that narrow range, your visual system can distinguish millions of different colors and subtle variations in hue, brightness, and saturation. This extraordinary sensitivity to color has shaped human culture, language, and emotion throughout history. Different colors trigger different psychological responses, influence your mood and behavior, and carry cultural meanings that vary across societies, but seem to tap into deep biological responses to light that evolved over millions of years of human development. As you prepare to journey through the physics and biology of color tonight, rest in the knowledge that you possess one of the most sophisticated color detection systems in the natural world. A visual apparatus so sensitive that it can distinguish between wavelengths of light that differ by only a few billionths of a meter, transforming the abstract mathematics of electromagnetic waves into the rich, colorful world of human experience. The dance of wavelengths, how light becomes color. Imagine now the extraordinary dance of electromagnetic waves that creates all the colors you have ever seen. A cosmic choreography where invisible energy oscillating at different frequencies becomes the visible spectrum that paints your world in infinite hues and shades. Light travels as waves through space and time, and like ocean waves or sound waves, these electromagnetic waves have specific properties that determine how you experience them. The distance between the peaks of these waves, called wavelength, determines what color you perceive when the light reaches your eyes. Red light has the longest wavelengths that your eyes can detect, roughly 700 nanometers from peak to peak, while violet light has the shortest visible wavelengths, about 400 nanometers. Distances so small that millions of wavelengths would fit across the width of a single human hair. When white light from the sun or a light bulb encounters a triangular piece of glass called a prism, something magical happens that reveals the hidden rainbow within ordinary light. The glass bends different wavelengths by slightly different amounts, a phenomenon called refraction, causing the mixed wavelengths to separate like a deck of cards being spread across a table. The white light fans out into a spectrum showing red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. The same colors you see in rainbows, created by the same physics operating on a much larger scale. This separation of white light into its component colors demonstrates that what appears to be simple illumination is actually a complex mixture of many different wavelengths traveling together at the speed of light. Your brain normally blends all these wavelengths into the perception of white or colored light, but a prism reveals the individual notes in light's symphony, each color representing electromagnetic waves of specific frequencies dancing through space. The colors of objects around you emerge from their selective interaction with these different wavelengths. When white light strikes a red apple, the apple's skin contains molecules that absorb most wavelengths, but reflect red light back to your eyes. The apple doesn't have redness as a property. Rather, its molecular structure acts like a selective mirror, bouncing red wavelengths toward your visual system, while absorbing blues, greens, and most other colors. Green leaves demonstrate this selective reflection beautifully through the molecule chlorophyll, which absorbs red and blue light very efficiently to power photosynthesis, but reflects green wavelengths that the plant cannot use for energy production. The green color of forests and grasslands represents light that plants are essentially discarding, wavelengths they don't need for their biological processes, but which happen to match the sensitivity peak of your color vision system. Black objects appear black because they absorb most wavelengths of light, converting the electromagnetic energy into heat rather than reflecting it back to your eyes. White objects appear white because they reflect most wavelengths roughly equally, sending the full spectrum of visible light back to create the perception of whiteness in your visual system. Gray objects fall between these extremes, absorbing some light and reflecting some across all visible wavelengths. Transparent materials like glass and water allow most wavelengths to pass through with minimal absorption, which is why you can see through them clearly. But even transparent materials interact with light in subtle ways. The slight bending of light as it passes from air into water creates the optical effects that make swimming pools appear shallower than they really are, and causes objects underwater to appear in slightly different positions than their actual locations. The atmosphere itself acts as a giant selective filter for sunlight, scattering shorter blue wavelengths more than longer red wavelengths through interactions with gas molecules and tiny particles suspended in the air. This atmospheric scattering explains why the sky appears blue during the day. You're seeing the blue wavelengths of sunlight that have been bounced around by air molecules and scattered in all directions, including toward your eyes. During sunrise and sunset, when sunlight must travel through much more atmosphere to reach you, most of the blue light gets scattered away before it can reach your location, leaving the longer red and orange wavelengths to paint the sky in warm colors. The same physics that creates blue skies creates red sunsets, demonstrating how the path light takes through Earth's atmosphere affects which wavelengths reach your eyes. Even the colors you see in soap bubbles and oil slicks on wet pavement result from the interference between light waves reflected from different surfaces. When light waves that are slightly out of phase with each other combine, they can reinforce certain wavelengths while canceling out others, creating the shifting rainbow patterns that dance across these thin films as the viewing angle changes. As you rest quietly tonight, feel yourself surrounded by this constant dance of wavelengths, where every surface around you is selectively absorbing and reflecting different frequencies of electromagnetic radiation, creating the complex interplay of light and matter that your visual system translates into the rich world of color that defines so much of human experience. The eye's rainbow factory, how your visual system creates color. Journey now into the remarkable biological machinery housed within your eyes, where specialized cells work in perfect coordination to transform invisible electromagnetic waves into the rich palette of colors that paint your visual world, creating one of the most sophisticated sensory experiences in the natural world. Your eyes contain approximately 120 million rod cells and 6 million cone cells, each one a biological sensor more sensitive and precise than any camera technology humans have yet invented. The rod cells, concentrated primarily in the outer regions of your retina, detect light and darkness, but cannot distinguish colors. They provide your black and white vision in dim lighting and your peripheral vision during daylight. The cone cells, concentrated in the central region of your retina called the fovea, are your eye's color specialists, and they come in 3 distinct types, each one sensitive to different ranges of wavelengths. One type of cone responds most strongly to long wavelengths that you perceive as red light. Another type responds best to medium wavelengths that create the sensation of green. And the third type is most sensitive to short wavelengths that you experience as blue. This 3-color system in your eyes is the foundation of all color vision. Every hue you have ever perceived results from different combinations of signals from these 3 types of cones. When you see yellow, for example, both your red-sensitive and green-sensitive cones are sending strong signals to your brain simultaneously, and your visual system interprets this combination as yellow, even though there may be no yellow wavelength of light actually entering your eyes. The genius of this 3-color system is that it allows you to perceive millions of different colors using only 3 types of sensors. Purple, which has no single wavelength in the visible spectrum, emerges when your red and blue cones are stimulated together, while your green cones remain relatively quiet. Pink appears when strong red signals combine with weaker inputs from green and blue cones, creating a color experience that corresponds to no specific wavelength, but feels as real and distinct as any pure spectral color. When light strikes these cone cells, it triggers a remarkable cascade of molecular events. Specialized proteins called opsins absorb photons and change shape, initiating electrical signals that travel through your optic nerve to your brain at speeds approaching 300 miles per hour. Each cone can respond to individual photons, single particles of light, making your eyes sensitive enough to detect a candle flame from 30 miles away on a clear, dark night. Your visual system performs extraordinary feats of signal processing to create stable color perception under varying lighting conditions. The phenomenon called color constancy allows you to perceive a white sheet of paper as white, whether you view it under the blue-tinted light of the sky, the yellow-tinted light of incandescent bulbs, or the broad-spectrum light of the sun. Your brain automatically adjusts its interpretation of cone cell signals to account for the color temperature of ambient lighting. The blind spot in each of your eyes, where the optic nerve attaches to the retina, contains no photoreceptors at all. Yet you never notice this gap in your visual field because your brain seamlessly fills in the missing information using sophisticated prediction algorithms based on surrounding visual data. Your visual system is constantly editing and interpreting raw sensory data to create the coherent, complete visual world you experience. Color blindness, which affects roughly 8% of men and less than 1% of women, usually results from genetic variations that alter the sensitivity ranges of cone cells. Most commonly, red and green cone sensitivities overlap more than usual, making it difficult to distinguish between these colors. Rarely, people are born with only two types of functioning cones, or even more rarely, with only rod cells, creating a monochrome visual world, similar to black and white photography. Some people, particularly women, may possess a fourth type of cone cell, potentially allowing them to see millions more color distinctions than typical trichromatic vision permits. These tetrachromats might perceive subtle color variations in sunsets, flowers, or fabrics that are invisible to most people, though the subjective experience of their enhanced color vision remains difficult to study scientifically. Your brain's visual cortex contains specialized regions devoted entirely to color processing, separate from the areas that analyze motion, depth, or object recognition. Damage to these color processing regions can create a condition called cerebral achromatopsia, where the eyes function normally, but the brain loses the ability to perceive color, rendering the visual world in shades of gray, while leaving other visual functions intact. The colors you perceive also influence your other senses and psychological states through complex neural connections. Red light can increase heart rate and blood pressure. Blue light can affect circadian rhythms and sleep patterns, and green environments can reduce stress and promote healing. Your color vision system connects to emotional processing centers in ways that make certain colors feel warm or cool, exciting or calming, pleasant or unpleasant. As you rest with your eyes closed tonight, your cone cells continue their molecular vigil, ready to transform the first photons of tomorrow's light into the colorful visual world that will greet you when you wake. Your personal biological rainbow factory, prepared to paint another day in the countless hues that make human vision one of the most remarkable sensory experiences in the natural world. Nature's palette, the science behind colors in the natural world. Explore now the magnificent ways that nature creates color through chemistry, physics, and biology, where every hue in the natural world, from the blue of sky to the red of roses, From the green of leaves to the iridescent shimmer of butterfly wings, emerges from elegant scientific principles that transform ordinary matter into visual poetry. The brilliant blues of tropical oceans and clear mountain lakes arise from the scattering of sunlight by water molecules and microscopic particles suspended in the water. Blue wavelengths scatter more than other colors as light penetrates the water, creating the azure depths that have inspired human wonder throughout history. In very pure water, this molecular scattering creates such intense blue coloration that deep mountain lakes appear almost supernatural in their clarity and hue. The green world of forests and grasslands depends on one of the most important molecules in Earth's history, chlorophyll. This complex organic compound captures red and blue wavelengths of sunlight to power photosynthesis, the process that converts carbon dioxide and water into the sugars that fuel almost all life on Earth. The green light that chlorophyll cannot use for photosynthesis bounces back to your eyes, making the color green synonymous with life, growth, and the remarkable process by which plants transform sunlight into biological energy. But nature creates colors through many mechanisms beyond simple pigmentation. The brilliant reds, oranges, and yellows of autumn leaves emerge when chlorophyll breaks down as trees prepare for winter, revealing carotenoid pigments that were present in the leaves all summer, but masked by the dominant green of chlorophyll. These same carotenoids create the orange of carrots, the yellow of corn, and the red of tomatoes, demonstrating how similar molecules produce related but distinct colors throughout the plant kingdom. The iridescent blues and greens of peacock feathers, butterfly wings, and beetle shells arise from an entirely different mechanism called structural coloration. Rather than absorbing and reflecting specific wavelengths through pigments, these creatures have evolved microscopic structures that create interference patterns in reflected light. Tiny layers or grids in their surfaces cause light waves to interfere with each other, reinforcing certain wavelengths while canceling others, creating colors that shimmer and change with viewing angle. The deep red of blood results from iron atoms at the center of hemoglobin molecules, the same element that creates the rusty red of oxidized iron and the red soils of places like Georgia and Mars. When oxygen binds to the iron in hemoglobin, it changes the molecule's electron configuration in ways that alter which wavelengths of light it absorbs and reflects, explaining why oxygen-rich arterial blood appears bright red, while oxygen-poor venous blood looks darker and more purple. Flowers have evolved spectacular arrays of colors, specifically to attract pollinators, creating what amounts to biological advertising through precise chemical control of pigmentation. The anthocyanins that create red, purple, and blue flowers can produce different colors depending on the pH of the plant's cellular environment. The same pigment molecules that make red roses can create blue cornflowers when the cellular chemistry shifts toward alkalinity. Many flowers also produce patterns invisible to human eyes, but clearly visible to insects, whose visual systems extend into ultraviolet wavelengths. What appears to you as a uniformly yellow sunflower reveals intricate UV patterns to a bee, creating landing strips and nectar guides that direct pollinators to the most productive parts of the flower. The natural world contains an entire palette of ultraviolet colors that exist beyond human perception, but play crucial roles in animal communication and survival. The brilliant colors of many poisonous animals, from the red of coral snakes to the bright orange of monarch butterflies, serve as warning signals to potential predators, a phenomenon called aposematism. These warning colors have evolved to be as conspicuous as possible, often using pigments that create the most saturated, attention-grabbing hues possible to advertise the danger of attacking these toxic creatures. In contrast, many animals have evolved colors and patterns that provide camouflage, using pigments and structural coloration to blend seamlessly with their environments. Chameleons and cuttlefish can change colors rapidly by expanding and contracting specialized cells called chromatophores that contain different colored pigments, effectively turning their skin into a biological display screen capable of producing complex patterns and color changes. The northern and southern lights, aurora borealis and aurora australis, paint the polar skies in curtains of green, red, and blue through a completely different mechanism, involving the interaction of solar wind particles with atoms in Earth's upper atmosphere. Oxygen atoms struck by high-energy particles from the sun emit specific wavelengths of green and red light, while nitrogen produces blues and purples, creating one of nature's most spectacular light shows through the physics of atomic excitation. Even the colors of gemstones result from trace amounts of transition metal atoms incorporated into crystal structures, where electrons in these metal atoms absorb specific wavelengths of light and reflect others. The deep red of rubies comes from chromium atoms in aluminum oxide crystals, while the blue of sapphires results from iron and titanium atoms in the same basic crystal structure, demonstrating how subtle changes in atomic composition can create dramatically different colors. As you rest peacefully tonight, surrounded by the invisible palette of natural colors that exist even in darkness, the infrared glow of your warm body, the subtle bioluminescence of certain bacteria and fungi, the ever-present potential for color that waits in every surface for tomorrow's light. Feel yourself part of nature's ongoing color symphony, where chemistry and physics collaborate to paint the world in hues that delight the eye and inspire the human spirit. The color of light, from rainbows to sunsets. Contemplate now the magnificent ways that light itself becomes a painter in the sky, creating the ethereal colors of rainbows, the warm hues of sunrise and sunset, and the shifting palette of clouds that transform Earth's atmosphere into a canvas for some of nature's most breathtaking artistic displays. A rainbow represents one of the most perfect demonstrations of how white light contains all colors within it, waiting to be revealed by the right conditions. When sunlight encounters millions of tiny water droplets suspended in the air after a rainstorm, each droplet acts like a miniature prism, bending different wavelengths of light by slightly different amounts and separating white light into its component colors. But the physics of rainbows involves more than simple refraction. Light entering each water droplet bends as it passes from air into water, reflects off the back surface of the droplet like a mirror, then bends again as it exits the droplet and returns to air. This complex path through the water droplet causes different wavelengths to emerge at slightly different angles, creating the familiar arc of colors with red on the outside edge and violet on the inner edge. The circular arc of a rainbow represents the geometry of light and shadow. You can only see a rainbow when the sun is behind you and water droplets are in front of you, because you must be positioned along a line where light reflected from the droplets can reach your eyes at the precise angles needed to separate the colors. The rainbow always appears to be the same angular distance from the point directly opposite the sun, creating an arc that seems to follow you as you move. Double rainbows occur when light makes two reflections inside water droplets instead of one, creating a fainter secondary rainbow outside the primary rainbow with its colors reversed: violet on the outside and red on the inside. The dark band between the two rainbows, called Alexander's band, appears darker than the surrounding sky because no light emerges from droplets at those specific angles. The warm colors of sunrise and sunset result from sunlight's journey through much more atmosphere when the sun is low on the horizon. Earth's atmosphere scatters shorter blue wavelengths more efficiently than longer red and orange wavelengths, a phenomenon called Rayleigh scattering. When sunlight has to travel through hundreds of miles of atmosphere to reach you at sunrise or sunset, most of the blue light gets scattered away in other directions, leaving the longer wavelengths to paint the sky in warm hues. The same atmospheric scattering that creates colorful sunsets explains why the sun itself appears yellow during the day and orange or red when low on the horizon. The sun actually emits white light, containing all colors equally, but atmospheric scattering removes some of the blue wavelengths from direct sunlight, making the sun appear slightly yellower than it would in the vacuum of space. Clouds create their own palette of colors through their interaction with sunlight and their varying thickness and water content. Thin clouds appear white because they scatter all wavelengths of sunlight roughly equally. Thicker clouds appear gray or dark because they absorb more light overall. Clouds can take on spectacular colors during sunrise and sunset when illuminated by the warm-colored light that remains after atmospheric scattering. The blue color of the daytime sky itself demonstrates molecular scattering on a planetary scale. Individual gas molecules in the atmosphere, primarily nitrogen and oxygen, are much smaller than the wavelength of visible light, causing them to scatter shorter blue wavelengths more efficiently than longer red wavelengths. This preferential scattering of blue light fills the entire sky with a gentle blue glow that becomes the backdrop for clouds, birds, and aircraft. At high altitudes, where the atmosphere becomes thinner, the sky appears deeper blue or even purple because there are fewer molecules to scatter the light, allowing more of the sun's direct light to reach your eyes, while still providing enough molecular scattering to create sky color. Astronauts in space see a black sky because there are too few molecules for any significant scattering to occur. The green flash, sometimes visible at sunset over the ocean, represents an atmospheric optic effect where different colors of sunlight bend by slightly different amounts as they pass through air layers of varying density. For just a moment, as the sun disappears below the horizon, the last visible light may appear green because atmospheric refraction bends green wavelengths just enough to remain visible after red wavelengths have been blocked by the Earth's curvature. Atmospheric phenomena can create spectacular and unusual color displays. Sundogs, or parhelia, create bright spots of colored light on either side of the sun when ice crystals in the atmosphere act like tiny prisms. Light pillars create vertical columns of light extending above and below the sun when ice crystals in the air reflect sunlight like millions of tiny mirrors aligned horizontally. The aurora, northern and southern lights, paint the polar skies in colors created by an entirely different mechanism, involving charged particles from the sun interacting with atoms in Earth's upper atmosphere. Oxygen atoms emit green and red light when struck by these high-energy particles, while nitrogen produces blues and purples, creating curtains of color that dance across the night sky in patterns controlled by Earth's magnetic field. Even moonlight can create its own subtle color effects. Lunar rainbows, or moonbows, occur when bright moonlight reflects off water droplets in the same way that creates solar rainbows, though they usually appear white to human eyes because moonlight is too dim to activate the color-sensitive cone cells in your retina. As you drift towards sleep under tonight's sky, whether clear or cloudy, feel yourself surrounded by the atmosphere's endless potential for color creation, where every sunrise and sunset will paint the sky anew, where every storm creates opportunities for rainbows, where the very air around you scatters and shapes light into the beautiful colors that make Earth's sky unique among all the worlds we've yet discovered in the universe. The poetry of perception. Color as human experience. Rest now in contemplation of color as one of the most intimate and personal aspects of human experience, where the objective physics of electromagnetic waves becomes the subjective poetry of perception, creating not just visual information, but emotional resonance, cultural meaning, and the aesthetic foundation for art, language, and the very way you understand and navigate your world. Your experience of color transcends the mere detection of different wavelengths of light. It connects to memory, emotion, and meaning in ways that make color one of the most profound aspects of consciousness itself. The red of a rose carries not just information about light wavelengths reflected by flower petals, but associations with love, passion, romance, and countless personal memories of red things that have moved you throughout your life. The blue of a clear sky on a perfect day triggers responses that go far beyond visual data processing. That particular shade of blue may evoke feelings of peace, freedom, infinite possibility, or childhood memories of lying on your back in summer grass, watching clouds drift across azure depths. Your brain has woven color perception into the very fabric of emotional experience, making certain hues feel warm or cool, exciting or calming, friendly or distant. Color influences your behavior and physiology in subtle but measurable ways. Red light can increase heart rate and blood pressure, enhance physical performance, and create feelings of urgency or excitement. Blue light affects your circadian rhythms, suppressing melatonin production and promoting alertness, which is why blue-rich screens can interfere with sleep. Green environments have been shown to reduce stress, promote healing, and improve concentration, possibly reflecting evolutionary adaptations to the colors of healthy, life-sustaining natural environments. The language you use to describe colors reveals deep connections between visual perception and abstract thought. You speak of feeling blue when sad, seeing red when angry, or being green with envy, demonstrating how color words have become metaphors for emotional states. Different cultures have developed different color vocabularies, with some languages having dozens of words for subtle variations in green or blue, while others use the same word for blue and green, suggesting that language and culture shape color perception in complex ways. Artists throughout history have understood color as a direct pathway to emotion and meaning. Van Gogh's swirling yellow sunflowers, Monet's blue water lilies, Rothko's fields of pure color, all demonstrate how color can convey feelings and ideas that transcend representational imagery. The warm colors of candlelight and fireplaces create feelings of comfort and intimacy, while the cool colors of moonlight and winter skies evoke serenity or solitude. Your personal color preferences likely reflect a complex interplay of genetic factors, cultural influences, and individual experiences. The colors you choose for your clothing, your living space, and your artistic preferences reveal aspects of your personality and emotional needs that you may not consciously recognize. Color becomes a form of nonverbal communication, allowing you to express identity and mood through choices in your visual environment. The absence of color, the darkness you experience now with your eyes closed, creates its own profound perceptual state. In darkness, your visual system shifts to rely more heavily on rod cells, creating a different kind of vision that is more sensitive to light and motion, but cannot distinguish colors. This nocturnal visual mode connects you to millions of years of evolutionary history, when human ancestors needed to navigate and survive in dark environments. Dreams often include vivid colors that may be generated by your visual cortex without any external light input, suggesting that color perception involves neural processes that extend far beyond simple response to electromagnetic radiation. The colors you see in dreams, memories, and imagination demonstrate that color exists as much in your mind as in the physical world, created by patterns of neural activity that can occur independently of light entering your eyes. Synesthesia, experienced by roughly 4% of people, creates cross-connections between color perception and other senses, causing some individuals to see colors when hearing music, tasting foods, or thinking about numbers and letters. These neurological variations reveal that color perception involves complex neural networks that can interact with other sensory and cognitive systems in ways that create rich, multidimensional experiences of the world. The colors you perceive may be entirely unique to your individual nervous system. The red you experience when looking at a rose may be completely different from the red experienced by anyone else. Yet you both call it by the same name and respond to it in similar ways. This fundamental privacy of conscious experience, what philosophers call qualia, makes color one of the deepest mysteries of consciousness and perception. As the years pass, your color perception will gradually change as the lenses in your eyes yellow slightly and your retinal cells become less sensitive, creating subtle shifts in how you experience the visual world. Yet these changes happen so slowly that you adapt continuously, maintaining color constancy and stable color relationships throughout your lifetime. Cultural traditions around the world celebrate color as fundamental to human experience. Hindu festivals throw brilliant colored powders in celebration of spring and renewal. Tibetan prayer flags carry colors believed to represent different elements and spiritual qualities. Native American traditions associate specific colors with cardinal directions, seasons, and spiritual concepts, weaving color symbolism into the very structure of understanding reality. Sleep now in appreciation of your remarkable gift of color vision, this biological miracle that transforms invisible electromagnetic waves into the rich palette that paints your waking world with beauty, meaning, and emotional resonance. Rest, knowing that tomorrow's light will once again activate the sophisticated cellular machinery in your eyes, sending millions of signals through your optic nerves to create the colorful visual symphony that makes human experience so vivid, so beautiful, and so deeply connected to both the physics of light and the poetry of consciousness itself. Tomorrow, you will wake to a world painted in countless hues, each one a collaboration between the objective reality of electromagnetic radiation and the subjective miracle of human perception, where the ancient dance of light and matter becomes the ever-new experience of seeing, feeling, and living in full color.